All right, we're live. Welcome, everyone. You're going to see things are a little bit different. This is What Embargo episode Diecisiete, which is why Catfish and I decided to use Spanish, is beginning to question our knowledge because we're struggling in saying these titles. But as you can see, Brother Catfish is not with us tonight. We had a scheduling conflict, but our good friend and knowledgeable cigar smoker on the American market, Cigar Coop, is with us. Coop.
Hey, Tuna, how's it going tonight?
That's going well. Thanks for being here. If you
Thanks for
guys
having
aren't absolutely, if you guys aren't familiar with Cigar Coop, he's the Cigar Coop. It's cigarcoop.com. Is it Cigar Dash Coop or it's automatic on my computer now?
It's a Dash Coupe.
Yeah, Cigar Dash Coop. He's also a member of the Stogie Geeks. He does everything in terms of cigar news. He brings it all, reviews everything. He's what I like to call the full wheel. So, but he's going to be filling in today, and we're going to be doing a show that's a little bit different. And we're going to be going, kind of talking about Cuban market, but also the American market, and the title Cuban-esque. And what does it mean? What do we think it means? And what are some Cuban-esque cigars for the American market? Before we really go anywhere else, though, in recent Habanos news, this is pretty exciting. If you go to habanoscritic.com, Habanos announced last week that the Cohiba brands were going to start getting new bands. They wanted to add to the classic and the 1492 lines the bands which had been placed on the Pyramide Extras, which was released in 2011. So that's going to start happening right away. Anytime you see these new Robustos, Siglo 6, anything along those lines, you're going to see these new bands. You can see them at habanoscritic.com. Let me see if I can pull it up and show it to you all really quick. I don't think that's going to work. That's what the bands are going to look like. Those are the new Cohiba bands. Now, they will not be putting them on the Maduro 5 right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do something along those lines later on. So, which I think it's a nice packaging upgrade. Coop, what do you think about it?
I think it's good too. Now, from what I understand, I'm looking at the top and the bottom, and from what I heard, part of it was to try to combat counterfeiting.
Yeah, it's really going to combat it. They've got holograms all over the place. And they look great to begin with.
They really do. They have you look at the holograms, just add a nice effect to it. The Cohiba logo itself also has the hologram on it, which when you kind of zoom in on it, you can see that.
Yeah, it's all it's all over. So it's really, I think when they launched the Bahique back in 2010, this really kind of got things rolling, and I think it's good. I think it's good that you're going to see that with the brand. I think it's a brand that needs it. So that's exciting news. The other exciting news is, and this is just for me, is I smoked the new Oya, which is the first Oya to be released in about over 5 years. They haven't released one in a long time. It's the new Oya de San Juan, which is a big cigar, especially for Cuba. It's a 6x54 basically, and it's really smooth, really flavorful. It comes in 10 count and 25 count boxes. So if you come across the 10 count box and commit to it, it's going to be a good time. They're going to age wonderfully. As of right now, though, I can tell you it's contender for #1 cigar of the year for me, for Habanos Critic, and it's going to do well on Cess Humidor.
You seem very confident in that, with more potential.
Yeah, I'm loving it. So it's a great stick. So, but yeah, so that's kind of the news and bring that stuff up to beat. I'm smoking as Catfish and I usually say, we like to talk about we're smoking. I'm smoking the Vegas Robaina Unicos, the Pyramide, and I'll get that review up probably in the next couple weeks, and then we've assessed the entire brand that's on the market that's ready to production, which is pretty exciting for us. We'll do a little write-up on that. Coop, what are you smoking?
I am smoking a Tatuaje Black Label, the CRA edition, which is they did a Toro with a fume cap and a covered foot.
Nice.
And we'll kind of get into that because I think there's some, with Black Label, we were talking before the show, I think Cuban-esque could play into that.
Oh yeah.
So we'll definitely talk about that. I just smoked the Famosos on Stogie Geeks a few weeks ago, and I was pretty impressed with it. You know, I definitely had it as a box-worthy cigar. It was that was my bucket list cigar. I had not smoked a Vegas Urbana before, and I was blown away how good it was. It had a lot of complexity.
It's a really good line, and it's not a line I really go to that much, or ever really try to, but I know Catfish is a big fan of it.
Now, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, Mark Jr., who's one of our co-hosts, he used the term for this cigar, Cuban crispness.
Cuban Christmas.
Crisp.
Oh, crisp.
Crisp. I'm not Cuban crisp. Crisp as in crispy. What would you think if you said that? Because I kind of thought it did have it.
It's interesting. Now I'm thinking about it. You know, you're like trying to. It's not very. I'm trying to think about the right word to use. It is crisp. It's kind of like fine lines, but it's very enjoyable. It's pronounced.
Right.
There.
Right. Exactly. Where, you know, we'll get into Cuban twang probably a little later. It has some of that Cuban twang, but it's more pronounced in terms of how you can delineate it from the other flavors.
The crisp is an interesting quality. I've never even thought about it.
When because he had actually smoked that cigar a few weeks before I did, and when he used that term, it stuck in my head, and he's right. As soon as I smoked it, that was my feeling on it.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable line, and it does really well with age. A lot of the ones I've been smoking have been. Well, this one's probably only about a year old. This one's probably from 13, so it's still young, but it's enjoyable. But the other ones I've been smoking were from 07s, and they've been aging terrifically. If that's even a word. But yeah, the interesting thing about it is, you know, it's Robaina. Supposedly, I've heard two things. I've heard that the wrapper is actually from Alejandro's farm when they launched the brand. I've also heard, supposedly in conversations, Alejandro say, "There's none of my tobacco in that cigar."
Interesting.
So it's one of those. Who knows? But either way, talking about Cuban-esque, you know, his grandson did a cigar with Cubanacon, or is.
Yes.
And you smoked it.
I smoked it. It's called the HR, and you know, I talked to Catfish about that cigar. He had said he was going to wait to smoke his, but I had multiple samples. I gave it a run about 2 weeks after the show. Very good, and you can tell it needed a little more time to set down.
Yeah.
But it is a very good cigar. It's probably one of the better cigars to come out of Cubanacon. It's going to be a premium line. I mean, it's going to be pricey from what I heard. And I'm very curious, and I'm hearing you're going to have to, you know, it's not going to be available to every retailer. You're going to have to basically make an investment in Cubanacon to get it.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the line. So I'm a little skeptical about that approach. Basically, the price point I'm hearing is going to be, you know, around the $15 point.
That's high.
It's high, and you know, so I don't know who's going to take a chance on it. But again, this is a historic cigar. You know, this is historic that they've gotten Urbana.
I think it's historic for anyone. I mean, it's one of those things. This is really, I think, the cigar that can put them on the map.
Yeah, it definitely could. I mean, I think Cubanacon's they do some good stuff. They have not had something that I would say by any means is a wow cigar of the year, but they have some good stuff.
Well, good deal. So getting into that, if any of our American watchers, and most of you probably are American, everyone has probably heard the term Cuban-esque. They've probably said it, or they've heard someone say it, or they've read the Herrera Esteli ads where Drew Estate puts it right there, Cuban-esque. I know I've thrown the term around, and you know, I talked about this with Coop because when Coop was going to be on, I said, let's do something about this because this is a term which can be used for many areas. But my question for you overall, Coop, is when you say a cigar is Cuban-esque, What do you mean by that? What is your?
Well, so it's a loaded term.
It is.
Okay, we could talk about it from a flavor standpoint. All right, and there's some and there's some qualities we can get into, like Cuban twang, what that exactly is. There is the physical appearance of the cigars. So they can be in vitolas that are classic Cuban sizes. With and then it's a packaging piece with the banding and the boxes. And some cigars will have all three of those qualities. Some of them will have one of those three qualities. So I think like I said, it's by all means a loaded term. I think in general the flavor is probably going to be the most prevalent of all that. So you can look at like what Dion's done, right, with Illusione, and he's got some very Cuban-esque packaging and banding.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the recent releases especially,
Oh,
or
yeah.
his cabinet boxes. But his cigars are Nicaraguan through and through. So yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you in that sense. I mean, Dion's sense of packaging is one of those things. And you're right, it is a loaded question because the first thing is, the first thing you're thinking about is flavors, and you're like, man, does this smoke like a Cuban? And I've thrown it around before, probably sometimes more than is appropriate. Especially when you start smoking more Cubans, you start hearing it, and you're like, no, that's not really Cuban-esque. But the biggest thing I think most people look at is the flavor profile, and
Yep.
it's this whole, it tastes like a Cuban, or there's this quality to it which is aka Cuban-esque. And let's just start with the biggest one, and it's also a company that's biggest news is Herrera Esteli. They announced right away Cuban-esque. What do you think they were talking about of that cigar? Because you smoked it really on, and you still smoked it. I've smoked them.
Yep.
What do you think was that Cuban-esque quality to it, if you think it had it?
I think it had some Cuban-esque qualities. I agree with Catfish. There are definitely, in my opinion, there's more Cuban-esque cigars flavor-wise than that.
Yeah.
But some of the qualities I got out of that were definitely some of the toast notes.
Yes.
Some of those toast notes are definitely something that you'll get out of that. There is a pepper to that thing, but it's not a pepper bomb. And the other thing I would say is there's a little bit of vanilla, which I tend to sometimes get off of Cubans as well. I didn't think it had that Cuban twang.
Yeah.
Now, how do you define a Cuban twang? Because I have my definition of it.
For me, the best way I describe it is you picture this. To be honest, it's like picture some cedar wood, some Spanish cedar, that's been chilling on a beach, getting hit by saltwater waves for a period of time. And if you start toasting that, I feel like if you took a piece of that, it's kind of damp, or you let it dry a little bit. It's got some saltiness to it, but it's got that cederness quality to it. That's the flavor that to me really shows itself with some Cuban cigars. If that makes any sense.
It does. I think the twang is almost a citric meaning pepper, but it's not a citrus spice. I think you just hit on something that toasting kind of is the third component.
Yeah.
It's going to linger on the tongue, though.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be on the tongue and then gone. It says Jose Blanco. He calls it the finish on a cigar.
It is.
And it's got a long finish.
It's got this lemony, quality, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of spice. It's, and I always get it with like Room 101 Namakubi.
Yep. Oh yeah. The lemon.
That cigar shows some of those qualities. It doesn't show the complete picture, but it's one of those things to me that really shows. And I think it's a combination of the tobacco with some Honduran tobacco and Dominican tobacco. I think that does a really good job of showing that. But yeah, and those are flavors, and I think you're right with the Herrera Esteli. For me, it's that toast. There's almost like this barnyard flavor. A little bit of spice, but it's not a spice bomb, but there is this little sharp pepper quality to it. And to me, that's kind of where some of those qualities are.
Yeah.
But
And it's not. Yeah.
go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, and it's a medium in terms of strength and body.
It's not over the top.
Yeah, it's not going to weigh heavy on your palate, which, it's so, and that's, I think, it was everything that, let's say, Liga Privada and Undercrown wasn't.
Oh yeah.
That, you think about, they have a lot of coffee, earthy notes, a little more strength and pepper with those cigars.
So yeah. Someone, someone in the chat room just said Curivari bands, and we'll get into packaging.
Yeah, yeah.
Shortly.
Very good point
Yeah,
about that.
I mean, that's very, very Partagas-like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, for Herrera Esteli, that is the quality. Catfish and I disagree dramatically on this brand. I like it a lot more than he does, but of course, when he hates it, you only have to like it a little bit to really like it a lot more than he does. But he's not a big fan of the brand. I think if you smoke that I don't think the Lancero shows it as much, but I feel like the Lonsdale and the Robusto
Right.
show some of those Cuban-esque qualities to a certain extent. I don't think it shows it in the Bellicosa, but the Lonsdale and the Robustos do.
In your top 25, where did that cigar land last year?
Number 10. The Lonsdale was number 10.
I had it at 16. But I think you and I agree, when they first came out, something happened over the year. And I know there was some construction issues that we've talked about, but there was something over the year that happened, though, that cigar lost stock.
It did.
I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger. Maybe it was the construction issues, but I don't think it was just that. I'm not sure. Is anyone going to talk about having a Herrera Esteli in their humidor for 2 or 3 years and this thing smoking unbelievable? That's going to be the question. We don't know the answer to that yet.
And I still have some of those. I still have a couple Lonsdales and Robustos, because remember that for the original shipment was not in cellophane.
Nope. And they had to put it in cellophane because of the construction.
Yeah. And I have some of those original Lonsdales and Robustos without cellophane in my humidor because I know that they are original, just to see how they are, to see over time. And I had more of them. I smoked Robusto. I didn't see it going anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean it won't do anything else. But you're right. I think that is a brand that dropped down over time. And it kind of did. It may have been Cuban-esque to begin with, but it surely lost that Cuban-esque quality as it wasn't doing well with age.
Yeah, but I smoked them very quick too, so that's why I want to that's part of what I want to do is kind of see what's, if this can be one of those cigars. I can't wait to look at it. It has plume on it and see how it smokes.
Yeah. So and I picked that brand just because I think it's a pretty bold statement for Drew Estate to say that. But then again, if you look at the company as a whole, if you look at everything Drew Estate makes, well, yeah, Herrera Esteli is the most Cuban-esque thing they make. So, I mean, they're absolutely correct. Nothing else they make is anything in that category.
No, I mean, they're really Nicaraguan. And, we started to hit, I know we're going to hit on packaging, but the packaging on Herrera Esteli, there was no logo put on there. There were cabinet-style boxes.
Yep.
Which Drew Estate has used on Liga Privada, so I don't want to say. And the bando has no logo. I mean, that's a key thing. They went simplistic, which was everything that Drew Estate was not known for. And they produced the first Ecuadorian Habano cigar.
Yeah, and the other thing with their packaging is they took from that Bolivars and some others. They have that gold band that wraps around the cigars, and it's got the logo in it, imprinted on it. I think I have one around here. I did have one in that box. I have it somewhere around here. But yeah, that's the other thing they did. You see that with their cabinet boxes, and they did that with the Herrera Esteli. So that's one. Now, the other Cuban-esque, and here's a big one. We're going to hit some bigger ones, I think, now, is let's look at My Father and Tatuaje. And I think this is a good one because Pepin was once rolling in Cuba. He was doing a lot of stuff in Cuba, so they're all talk to a lot of guys. These are old school Cubans, blah blah blah. Going through the My Father portfolio, do you find anything in there that is Cuban-esque?
I think El Rey de los Habanos is one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Even the reblend that was done with it recently, I think that is close. I would not put. I'd say Black Label, Pepin
Yeah.
Black Label, absolutely.
The Cuban Classic.
Yep, I'd say that's Black Label.
It's strong.
It's strong, but it's very toasty. That has a little more of a woody taste. It's got a little less sweetness than probably some of the other cigars. But yeah, that cigar really has a little bit of firepower to it. I agree, especially in the Lanceros that they did.
Yeah. It's that's one. Now, I mean, and I'd agree with you on the My Father portfolio. That's looking at those are the ones that I'd say, okay, yeah.
Les Bijoux, absolutely not.
No, hands down, no way.
Flor de las Antillas.
See, I don't think it is. And
I don't think it is. It has the packaging, but not. That's where it stops. I don't think it. I don't.
That is Nicaraguan through and through.
If I know you have a listener named Guy out there, if he thought I don't want to put any words on the map. I enjoy his feedback a lot. I don't think he would say that's Cuban-esque.
No.
And I think he would say that's trying to make it look Cuban-esque on the packaging.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I don't want to I'll apologize ahead of time. But that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely on that one.
El Centurion.
I mean, once again, I see, even the original El Centurion. And
I tell you, not the original. Yeah, I agree. Both of them, no.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, Pepin is. I think he brought that Cuban method. I think he really resurrected the Cuban method in America. I think he really brought back. I think he brought triple cap and two bar, the rolling method, the whole idea. But he's never really brought Cuban packaging, and he's never really brought that Cuban-esque flavor profile overall.
He borders on some of that a little with the My Father lines, but it's I'd say it's not Cuban packaging. It's got shades of Cuban in it. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
they're nice packaging. Les Bijoux, but you're not gonna go to Cuba and buy a box or something like that.
Yeah,
but it's got a little bit of an undertone, maybe.
Let's go to Tatuaje because Pete's a guy who loves throwing out all these old. A lot of these brands, El Triunfador, La Riqueza, a lot of these are old Cuban brands. He makes references to a lot of old Cubans. Oh
yeah, El Triunfador is a brand he brought back.
Yeah.
Yep. Cabaguan refers to
Pepin's hometown.
Yep.
Yeah, Sancti Spiritus is the area which Cabaguan's located in. I mean, it's.
Yep.
And even you look at Ateliers, you look at when the Ateliers came out, compare those with Vejiques, and he'll even say, yeah, it's kind of a mock at that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like new school Cuban-esque. Yeah. You go back to 2008, there was nothing like that really in Cuba. Packaging-wise, it looked like that.
Oh yeah, no. But out of his cigars and the flavor spectrum, which ones would you say are fairly Cuban-esque? Because I go through the list and it's tough to find a lot
of them. La Riqueza, would you say that is? I wouldn't say it is. It's a broadleaf.
I wouldn't say it is. He does a great job with broadleaf, and I love his broadleaf offerings. He's one of the few guys who I really love broadleafs. But when you get into that area, I think you're leaving that whole Cuban spectrum. Now, Black Label is a cigar that he was in Cuba and it inspired him to make Black Label.
This is very Cuban-esque.
Yeah.
Toasty, hint of spice, slight twang, not a lot of twang. I would say the Toro is probably more Cuban-esque than the Lancero or the Petite Lancero.
Yeah.
You really get it off this one.
Yeah. I think in that brand, when you get a bigger ring gauge, you're getting less of that Nicaraguan Criollo.
Yep.
You're still getting and you're getting a little bit more of those vibes. But with that smaller ring gauge, that Nicaraguan Criollo really dominates the flavor profile. I mean, I think Atelier, that Sakti Spiritus wrapper, makes it very un-Cuban-esque, but at the same time, I think the blend itself, if you really kind of looked at the blend, there is some very subtle, soft, complex qualities in there, which is Cuban-esque. Now, I'm not saying it's very Cuban-esque, because that wrapper will kill any Cuban flavor profile. But I think if you switch that wrapper out, that blend could be very Cuban-esque.
What about Brown Label? You know, that was kind of modeled to
It
some
was.
extent.
And he modeled it off of some old ones, and it's, you know, now I think it's really taken on its own characteristic. I think
so too. Yeah.
It may have been back in the day, and I can't remember stuff from back then. I mean, I remember some 06s and 05s, but it's just one of those things that it couldn't. Now, he did release, you remember last year, because you and I were at a Tinderbox with him.
Yep.
And this was when the Saints Center box just came out. And remember when he was announcing about doing a limited cigar at events, but then he was also talking about doing a cigar for Europe.
Was that the...
Yeah.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The cigar he put in the Saints and Sinners kit, one of them was basically mocked off of that, but it was kind of, the idea was to bring it to Europe to, I think, a German retailer or a French retailer, something like that. That cigar was very Cuban-esque. Pete blended that, and that was blended for the European market. It's very different than what the American market's looking for. So, and that's a shame that you didn't get to smoke. I only smoked one of them, but I think if we talked to a couple other Saints and Center guys, they'd probably say, yeah, I see what you're saying with that. But the black label, you're right, is the classic. A lot about that is just kind of really, you know, Cuban to me.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
Let's talk Illusione in flavor spectrum.
Yeah. Am I supposed to be shifting the camera onto me at any time or no?
What do you mean?
Like, to get my pic, I know. Do I click on me when I'm talking?
No, it automatically goes to you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Illusione. I mean, if we look at those lines, I wouldn't say the original documents is.
No. That's Argonor. I mean, that's Casa Fernandez.
Oh yeah.
I know they make cigar, and Paul Palmer. They make them in the Cuban tradition, though.
Yeah.
It's got its own characteristics.
It is.
Paul may disagree with me on that.
But I agree with you about that. One of them, I'm sorry, the chat room's blowing up with people throwing in comments here. This is actually pretty productive. Epernay is very interesting because Epernay is almost like the Olla Double Coronas in the fact that there's no Ligero used in that blend whatsoever. So this is all Nicaraguan, but there's no Ligero, so it's very subtle. I think it's a little too complex and unique for a Cuban.
Mm-hmm.
But I see where he's going with it, and it is in some ways a little bit Cuban-esque, even though it's really not showing that flavor profile.
There's some really good comments we got to get to on some
some of these guys.
PSI man, we got to get to it on his comments too. Yeah. So we'll hit those guys. So yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get all. We're gonna get all.
Yep.
Now, do you think there's anything else in Nicaragua which is kind of producing that Cuban-esque profile?
Well, one of them was Regis and Elogio, the two that PSI man mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down.
Yes.
And it's no secret why Catfish loves those brands.
Oh yeah, that black label, Regis Black Label. You know, if I smoke that Robusto, I mean that's just screaming Cuban-esque qualities.
It really does. It's done with Nicaraguan tobacco. I mean, but you know, Akil was going for something with that cigar.
Yeah.
He had a vision. And then the Orchins, which I don't think you've smoked the Orchins.
No,
Same
I
thing.
haven't smoked them. Yeah.
Yeah, the Orchins also have that. the Exclusivo USAs, I don't think were quite in that wheelhouse. I think they deviate. You've already smoked one of the Exclusivos?
The the new white ones. I haven't
Yeah.
smoked. They're chilling in my humidor, just kind of.
Okay. Yeah, let me know what you're thinking about. I don't think they're necessarily Cuban-esque, but they're very good. I mean, that's not a knock on them.
So, but that's the Elogio with the, in my opinion, that's Serie LSV.
Yep.
That's one that's, to me, it really shows a lot of those flavor profiles. I mean, it's a hell of a cigar, anyways.
If you're yeah, oh, if you're a cigar nerd or stogie geek, to use a bad word,
yeah, Stogie.
Elogio's in everyone. You know, when you talk Elogio, you know. I mean, I walked into a store in Atlanta yesterday, and they had Elogio, and when I mentioned it to them, there was like a connection. Hey, this guy, does really respect cigars.
Yeah,
Same thing back with when I talked to the person. So it's one of those like real jump. It's for such a small brand to have that impact. It's amazing.
it's when you walk into a store that has it, you know you're walking into a store that really understands.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And
There
the stores that
really is.
can't keep it don't understand. So in other words, they have it. I know, and I can think of one store that had it that I know of, and they basically don't have it anymore because they did not. The guy who did know about that cigar left the store.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know the store I'm talking about too. So
Yeah. So, and it's a hell of a line. So, leaving Nicaragua, let's say, you go to Honduras, and I don't know about you, but Christian does some incredible stuff with Honduran Corojo tobacco, and I love it. But there's nothing coming out of that country to me that's really Cuban-esque.
no, I mean, Christian is always about the authentic Corojo.
Yeah.
He'll always be about that. But no, there's nothing. And I'm curious to see if the chat room is gonna come up with some stuff out of Honduras with that.
I mean, I can't think of anything, and it's just it's one of those that there's some good stuff coming out of there. I mean, maybe, and this is pushing it, maybe, in my opinion, Room 101 Namakubi could be the closest, or leads the pack.
It's a stretch. I would put it as...
Yeah, but that's still tough to say.
Yeah, Coots is not in that category.
No.
Leaf by Oscar is not in that category.
Yeah. Great cigars, but I mean, it's just not.
How about anything from Racist Cubanas?
I mean, a lot of it's just Alec Bradley, and I don't think Alec Bradley is really doing that stuff. I think Viaje stuff is not really Cuban-esque. I mean, it may be gold, triple cap, and then two bar, that Cuban method, but
there's nothing. Yeah, I would agree. Nothing against Andre.
No, I mean, Andre made great sticks, and I mean, look, his packaging as well. His packaging really isn't even Cuban-esque, but it's still a great stick. I mean, gosh, Zombie Super Shots, I love.
Zombie Super Shots. Yeah, I mean, I love Satori's and Friends and Family.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep, I mean, so no, I mean, I'm just trying to think, of anything else, that's Cuban-esque. I know Rocky has tried to go Cuban-esque with a couple of cigars, and I don't think he's been successful at it. I mean, I think he tried with the 1961. I really do. And I don't think it worked.
Yeah, he failed miserably with that. I mean, he failed miserably at making a decent non-Cuban cigar with that. So that's...
I agree.
That was a blow, but that's all right. Rocky can take it. So, leaving Honduras, Dominican Republic, and this is tough for me because Dominican stuff, in my opinion, is just very Dominican, or it's it is what it is, and I don't think you can compare an Opus X to a Cuban.
No.
It's
I mean, what's coming? Yeah, it's not. No. I mean, then when you get into Añejo, absolutely not.
Oh gosh, no. And it's you look at and you look at all the other Opus, the other Fuente products, and I just don't see a lot of the other stuff. Good cigars, but it's nothing getting close to it.
But let's look at the history for a second. You know, you think
Yeah,
about it. Dominican was like, you know, Honduras and Nicaragua more newcomer.
yeah,
Dominican was kind of the other island, and I think there was almost to some extent. I don't want to say it was intentionally done different, but it was done different. Now, I'll say this: aging room with the La Boheme and the bin number one has definite Cuban qualities that I've not seen out of the aging rooms before. Those two releases, whether you like them or not, I think you can argue that they have Cuban qualities. But I would not say anything else out of aging rooms had that before this year.
yeah. You know what just came to mind? The Davidoff Maduros. If you smoke the Davidoff Maduro, and you smoke a Cohiba Maduro, a Davidoff Maduro, it's kind of similar to that, but it's better.
But yeah, and you think about it, they're not a Nicaraguan Maduro. That's what
Yeah,
I mean. They're very, you know, we think Maduro, we think broadleaf Nicaraguan a lot. Yeah, but you're right. It's not that. But that's, you know.
but it's still a little different. But it's kind of showing some of those qualities, and but you know, overall, there's nothing there. Overall, it kind of just showed that Cohiba Maduro quality, but that's a little bit different than, in my opinion, than a lot of that Cuban stuff.
So yeah, yeah. But I'm thinking when Zeno moved his production out of Cuba to the Dominican, I don't know too much of the. I mean, I know they moved it. I know the whole story. But was there an attempt to recreate the Cuban to make those taste like Cubans, or were they just saying, "Hey, we're going to start over and see what we can do"?
I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either.
One of those. I think they said, "Hey, let's change it up," and you know, I don't think there is, because I think they went down this whole Ecuadorian wrapper and Dominican filler, and I think they just kind of went for a different style that was just high end. I think they left at a time where they thought they just needed to do something more.
Okay, how about Avo though? You think Avo they did some of it with some of the grassy Avo notes?
You know, to be honest, I haven't smoked an Avo in a long time.
I know you're not a big Avo guy.
No, I'm
I
not.
would say there's some. Yeah, I would say there's some. I mean, I've had the Avo Lounge cigar, which is the one they sell in the lounges, and that one is probably one of the closer ones I could say. Yeah, I'd probably call it Cuban-esque, and people may disagree with me on that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'd have to smoke it. I haven't smoked it. Maybe it
The
is.
limiteds. I mean, if you're thinking the limiteds, I don't think the limiteds are Cuban-esque at all.
Yeah.
They're totally different.
You know, I will say, and this is going back, and just because I've been smoking a crap ton of them lately. You go back to Tabcar Palma, Jose's Señoral, the number two. Don't think about anything else, but the number two, that new torpedo, it shows some Cuban-esque qualities to it for me.
I haven't smoked a torpedo yet, so that's now I'll have to give that a shot.
And you know, in conversations with Jose and Emma, they've even said in Europe that their cigar, the consumers are saying, "Wow, this is like a stronger Cuban," and I can see it in the number two. I don't see it in the other stuff, but I can see them saying, "Oh, this is like a stronger Cuban," with that number two. So if you smoke the Señoral number two, that torpedo, let me know what you think, because I think there is.
Okay.
So anything else? I mean, I don't even think we really need to cover PDR.
No, I don't. But you know, PSI Man just gave an interesting one. He said, "What about Casa?" And I don't think you've smoked Casa Cuba yet from Fuente.
I did smoke one.
I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree 100% with that, because that had a very unique spice off of that thing.
Yeah.
But I see where he's going with that. I just think it had this layer of spice, which was very unique on it. That I didn't get off a Cuban.
Simon said the Davidoff Nicaraguan short Corona is kind of Cuban-esque. I disagree with him. I think that, and you know, this goes back to I had a long conversation with with Jose Blanco about this. And at the end of the conversation, he and I both came to the agreement that the Davidoff Nicaragua can be seen as probably the most Dominican of Nicaraguan puros and the most Nicaraguan of Dominican puros on the market.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those cigars, it may not do great, and this was when it first came out, so it may not do terrific in the United States and speak to a lot of those all those Nicaraguan lovers out there. But internationally, I believe, and I maybe it is. I think it is. I think it did well because it's tamed down a little bit. It's not that in-your-face Nicaraguan, and it's just a little bit more easier. And that's my thought. What are your thoughts on it?
I think I agree, and I think this is all hanky. And we've heard that Hanky's was resistant to work with Nicaraguan tobacco for a while. Yeah. But if Hanky was going to blend with it, Hanky not going to be Hanky. He was still going to be Hanky, and he knows what he likes in a cigar. And he found he probably went through a lot of tobaccos, but he got something. There's no question. He got something. It was a game changer in what you could do with a Nicaraguan cigar.
Yeah, it's a good stick. I really enjoy it. I don't know if I'd consider it Cuban-esque, but it sure is tasty. I love it.
I think it's Dominican-esque. I think it's Dominican-esque is what it is.
It's very Dominican, very good, and just very Dominican. So it's, that's that out of the Davidoff, which I'd say is pretty Cuban-esque. Now, we're going to go into an area, because I think I'm done with the DR. Is there anything in the DR that we left off? La Aurora, I don't think is really. I think La Aurora.
Did we hit Lido? Lido, I don't think either.
Yeah, the sad thing is, some of these guys we're skipping over just because it's just so clearly obvious there's nothing Cuban-esque about it, I think.
No, I mean, Lido is probably very un-Cuban-esque. Maybe people will disagree with us on that, but
it's not that it's bad. It's just it's really far from being Cuban.
You don't think Cuban when you think of a Lido Gomez cigar.
Yeah. So now when and this is my thought, because this is the next area I want to jump to, and then we can go to another area really quick. But when I think of Miami, Little Havana, this is an area which is, to me, it's just very Miami. It tastes like a Miami-made cigar. It tastes like Little Havana. There's this Cuban quality to it, but at the same time, it's giving off this whole made in Miami quality. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you get this when you smoke the cigars that are made in Miami?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily get a strong Cuban-esque, although there's a heavy Cuban influence on those cigars.
Yeah.
Because, you go into El Titan de Bronze, you have Maria, Willie was there, you went into El Rey de los Albanos, again, so Pepin was there at one point. So, I mean, I think there was this heavy Cuban influence, but there's an intangible thing that you get on that Miami cigar. Not Miami Cigar and Company, but the Miami Little Havana cigar.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to put my finger on it, but you're right.
You know what I think it is? And it's because they take the Cuban style of, they have one roller. There's one person working on your cigar. It's not a pair.
It's the custom. I mean, pretty much it's the custom roll thing they're doing.
Yeah, it's this whole one person handles it and does the entire process. So there's almost this level of consistency throughout, which is making it what it is. I look at some of them, the La Plena Goldies. You look at the number 2. I think the number 5, last year.
Last year, 13.
Last year was probably the most Cuban of the Goldies.
More so than the Petit Corona. I agree.
It showed some Oyo qualities. It showed some Cohiba qualities. And I've smoked those with a guy who smokes a lot of Cubans. And he and I both agreed that it really showed, and his brother agreed with us, that it really just showed a lot of Cohiba and Oyo qualities to it. I mean, but even the La Guita Especial kind of showed some of those qualities. I don't think it's as good as the 2 or the 5. But those are fairly Cuban-esque in my opinion, from a lot of aspects. The packaging is kind of, but at the same time, it's still a little bit fancier and more modern. But to me, that's kind of Cuban-esque.
Here's where I think, if I had to say, I put my stamp on it with that, a little more in the strength category.
Yeah.
As Media Tiempo.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's got a differentiating factor.
Yeah.
You probably say this is stronger than your classic Cuban-esque cigar.
Yeah. And even, it's even if you smoke a Cohiba Bijique, which has Cuban Medio Tiempo in that, compare that with the Casa Fernandez Miami Reserva, big difference. And you can see the strength from that Nicaraguan Medio Tiempo.
Yeah, same way I'm thinking of the Viaje Unleaded.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing Cuban-esque about that. That thing is firepower with that.
Yeah.
But a lot of flavor.
Yeah, a lot of flavors. And that's just where it is. And it's just very good, but there's stuff about it which is not very Cuban-esque. Now, going to kind of the chat room really quick. Dr. said Curavari. Their packaging is pretty Cuban-esque, especially with the band. I don't think their sticks are entirely Cuban-esque. Very good Nicaraguans, but a lot of the other stuff is pretty Cuban. What are your thoughts on that, Will?
I haven't smoked enough Curavari, okay, but what I will say is the pattern I've seen of guys who like Cubans go to that cigar.
Yeah.
There's guys I know in Charlotte that there is a shop that carries it, and they gravitate to that cigar, but they are Cuban smokers. They like their Cubans.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't smoked enough of it. To answer my pairing tonight, it's just coffee and it's a Harley Holmes' thing. I'm a usual low test. It's coffee from QT. Give them a plug. And it's probably cold already, and a Black Label Tatuaje.
I have water if anyone really cares.
I'm the lush on Stogie Geeks, as everyone knows.
No, but yeah, have you smoked? Yeah. Have you had the Skips coffee, the twin engine coffee, Intemperance coffee?
I've not had Skips. Now I've had other coffees from that company, and I mean, when you went down to Nicaragua, how good was the coffee?
Oh my gosh, that coffee will wake you up. I am tolerant. Coffee really does very little for me because I remember I had like 3 Cafe Cubanos in my hand, about to board the airplane to go down to Managua. And Willie's looking at me like, you're a crazy gringo. Like, you're going to be bouncing off the walls. And even this, the Stogie guys were like, man, you're going to be jacked up. And one of them said he looked over a half hour into the flight, and I was just passed out, just done, because it just doesn't do much to me. But that's the way coffee's supposed to be, in my opinion.
Well, I thought their coffee, higher caffeine level.
Yeah.
But medium in body, with kind of this slight cocoa flavor to it.
Yeah, there's some cocoa, and it's almost like this. My wife and I are drinking that Intemperance coffee, and it's jacking her up. But there's some cocoa and cherry qualities to it.
Yeah, a little bit of that cherry quality. I don't drink a lot of caffeine. I am wired when I have any of those Nicaraguan coffees, and I've had other coffees from Column. So I've had other twin engine coffees, and I can tell you, when I went to Nicaragua, there's no such thing as a decaf coffee in Nicaragua. My heart the first day, I felt it palpitating. Okay, that's why I was able to make it up late every night.
It's just jacked because of it.
Yeah, so because I feel because I don't drink a lot of caffeine, but when I do, it has an effect on me. I drove from Atlanta today, and I had caffeine, so. I may be a little wired today.
So, it's one of those. We talked about Regis Elogio. Someone mentioned the Jose Seas Signature Series.
Yeah, I could see it.
How many years ago is that? God, I haven't smoked one in years.
Seas is about 2009, I'm thinking, or 8. I'm not going to say I remember I'm guessing here. But, yeah, I mean, what about Matilde? We didn't talk about Matilde.
Wow. Man.
You're saying that.
They had to go down there.
That's an interesting one, though.
It's very, Matilde is very interesting because it's very Dominican. At the same time, it's showing some Nicaraguan qualities. It, it probably has a little bit, and I'd have to smoke one again. I haven't smoked one in a little while, but I have some lying around.
Yeah, I'm actually queuing that up for review pretty. I haven't reviewed it formally yet, and I got to do that.
It's a really good smoke. But as Logan is calling this new Dominican stuff, and that's Matilde, Senoral, and some of the Caldwell stuff, it's the Dominican hipster stuff. It's the new wave Dominican, which is a good way of putting it because that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Absolutely. Now
So,
there's one. Yeah, go ahead.
Holmes had a question. Do you think a Cuban cigar would overshadow a Cuban-esque cigar like Regis in sales due to it being Cuban? If I think would a Cuban cigar outsell a Regis, yes, I would.
Oh, sorry, Akil, and yeah, but that's a fact.
I mean, whether it's better or not, it would. You can talk to Coop later on about the $40 Cohiba he just smoked. Non-Cuban Cohiba.
Yeah, you'll read about that tomorrow.
Simon
It was nothing Cuban about it. Well, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't totally that. It did have a twang. Lemon twang. Yeah. There was one brand that was mentioned that we haven't talked about.
Harley Holmes said Warped.
We haven't talked. That's two then.
Two. So that's Warped.
Warped is an interesting one.
I've been smoking a bunch of Warps lately, and El Oso is not very Cuban.
Nope.
It's very enjoyable, but it's not very Cuban. And if he's listening, I hate the boxes on that. By the way, I hate how that slide box is. I just need to get that off my chest. And if he somehow finds out about this, I'll tell him why. Because it's one of those you cannot get that box on without destroying the wrapper or a band on one of those cigars.
Oh, jeez.
It's just you can take the box off easily, but you try and put it back on, you might as well smoke all 10 of that time. La Colmena is very interesting. I'd say to me it's that very Miami El Titan flavoring.
It's Miami El Titan, that sweetness. Well, it doesn't have the strength. See, the thing is that what Kyle's doing is he's doing stuff in the Cuban tradition with the custom rolls and the sizes.
Yeah. He's
bringing other Cuban-esque qualities to it in that perspective. He's not really going too much with the packaging, though. Especially maybe a little bit, but he's putting his own spin on it. He's being a traditionalist more than a Cuban-esque person, I think.
Yeah, La Colmena packaging to me is like, how I describe it is, it makes me think of like 1980s, 1990s Starship Galaxy. Everyone had those little flag. Everyone has their own flag, that La Colmena flag. I don't know. For some reason, I just think of something along those lines. It's very galactic. But there's that honeycomb thing going on with it. Simon brought up the other one.
Yeah. Let me make one more point on La Colmena real quick.
Yeah.
For boutique, if I'm buying stock in a boutique and they were publicly traded, IPO'd, I'm going Warped.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, they're something special. He's onto something special. That kid.
Yeah, he's. I got a jar door which is huge and cool, and it's packed full of a bunch of stuff.
He is really bringing back the traditional sense of cigars, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. He was wonderful to talk to at the show, and we had him on Stogie Geeks. So it's a good. People should definitely check them out.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to him about some stuff because he's really he's doing some really cool stuff. I'm digging his stuff. I smoked that Unico Especial.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great cigar.
Spanish for the special unicorn.
Yeah.
But Simon brought up a brand which you and I know.
Yeah. And Catfish now too.
Catfish knows it, called Atabay.
Oh boy. Oh yeah.
And this is by a man, Nelson Alfonso, right? Yeah.
Nelson Alfonso.
Who has done a lot of packaging for Habanos. A lot of the new packaging. He did the Bejique. He's done the new Vigueros, which are in the mail to Catfish and I. Our local LCDH were out, so we had to get them from a further away LCDH. It's well, he did all the packaging stuff, which is a very modern, fancy packaging for those brands. But he's also doing select tobacco down in Costa Rica.
Yep.
Yeah.
Made in Costa Rica. We don't know what the tobaccos are.
Yeah.
So the funny story, how I kind of stumbled onto this brand. What happened is, and can I mention another show?
Absolutely.
Okay. Cigar Authority, hosted by Dave Garofalo, who Seth and I both know. They do their cigar of the year, and they picked this brand Atabey for 2012. Now look, Dave distributes this cigar. Okay. I said, part of me is going, come on, really?
It's like, come on, you're distributing the brand, and you're giving it number one. Like,
really? So I told my friend Andy. My friend Andy was up. He actually travels between New Hampshire and Charlotte. I said, you got to pick me up this cigar. She picks me up. I know it's pricey, and I smoked that thing, and I said, my goodness, it probably would have been my number 2 cigar for 2012 behind the Goldie number 2. It was that good. I saw Dave at the 2013 show, and I introduced myself, and I basically apologized, saying, let me tell you, you guys were right on with this cigar. And then he reached into his co-host, Mr. Jonathan's pocket, and took his Atabey and handed it to me. And Jonathan's like, that really was my last one. I said, I'm taking it anyway. So the real deal, it really, I know a lot of people may have heard of it that way, but it's a real deal. That cigar is one of the best mild cigars I've ever had. It's a mild cigar.
It's very mild. As Simon says, there's no Costa Rica tobacco in those, and there is some Cuban. I cannot confirm nor deny those comments.
We don't know what the tobacco is.
I will say that. Yeah, I will say Select Tobacco sent me one. Because I saw the price, I was like, I sure as hell ain't buying one any day soon. Even though I saw positive reviews about it. And I smoked that thing, and it is phenomenal.
Yeah, then I gave Catfish one of my remaining ones, and because I went and got some more, and he ended up getting 2 at the show that best.
Oh yeah,
he smoked mine too. But I wanted him to smoke that cigar, and even because I think I wanted him at least to have them on the radio.
Yeah, Catfish loved it. So.
What is Cuban-esque about that cigar?
It's when you say it's mild, I mean that's almost of an understatement. It is very mild.
You're mild in strength and body.
It's just
maybe it's closer to medium in body, but yeah.
It's just really soft and smooth, but there's this complexity to it that is just, it shows a lot of unique qualities. To me, Cuban tobacco, when I think of Cuban tobacco, it's very old school flavors.
Yeah.
It's nothing like really popping in your face all the time, but there's these. I like to use the word stone fruit. I use it a lot with Cuban tobacco, and there's different varieties of it. But the Atabey is just, it shows so much. Gosh, it's just whatever it is.
There's a toast quality on that.
Yeah, there's toast. There's some stone fruit. There's this smooth creaminess to it, and it shows a lot of these qualities. And you see it in their other brands as well. I mean, they're not as good as Atabey. I'm not going to lie to you.
I really like Byron, and Byron's got its qualities, I think. But it's Byron. I see some other traits of it in Byron, and the third one's Bandolero.
Yeah.
Bandolero's got a sharper spice, but it kind of reminds me of just a sharper version of a Cuban spice, if there's any way to put that. A little bit of tanginess it has on it on top of that.
But Atabey is there. It's pricey. If you can afford one, give it a shot. Pick one up. You're gonna.
You know, if you're asking for a cigar for Christmas, okay,
There
and
you
you want something, someone wants to buy you a cigar, pick up the Atabey. You get a tube. You get the humiditube. Um, it's a nice Christmas gift. You could say it's a bucket list cigar. Check it off, and if you could you reuse the tube afterwards. I mean, it's
it's
something a little. You can just go to they sell them through twoguys.com. So I mean,
it's yeah, and I mean it's worth getting and smoking. I mean you
it
need
really is.
it's I mean it's pricey, yeah, but it's a great stick. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful qualities to it. I love it. Catfish is just madman about it. But it's great, and Nelson did a great job. And here's a guy. I mean, he didn't do any of the blending for Habanos. I want that's
Everyone needs to understand. I don't think he does the blending on the selecteds either. I'll be honest with you.
I
I
mean,
think
he
he's
may
a
not, but
brand
whoever
owner.
he has, they are working with really good tobacco, no matter where it's from, and they're making some really good blends. Are they pricey? Yes, they're really expensive. But I'll tell you one thing: they're probably one of the few blends that are worth the price. But I think it goes in with the packaging as well. The tubes are incredible. You can reuse the tubes like no other.
Oh,
Uh,
it's great. Like I said, some of them have some really nice artwork on them, especially the Byrons.
yeah, it's the tubes are just fantastic. But he's done a great job with it. It's very low profile. I think that's one of the reasons probably why it's not as. I mean, it's quality. The quantity of tobacco is very limited for the cigars. The cigar production is very limited. But I think the fact that it's just kind of a mystery is also one of the reasons why it's just not as out there as it could be.
I mean, let's put it this: when I smoked Atabey in 2013, early 2013, no one had heard of that cigar. It's now they've made some traction in the last 18 months, I think. So now I think, like I said, it's on that Cigar Geeks radar. I'd say Stogie Geeks radar. I have to get Paul, my co-host, to smoke it because I think it's in his wheelhouse. I'm
Simon
doing.
says, I hear Bandolero is not that great, so it's good. I think
It's very good. It's not an Atabey or Byron. It's got a very it's a niche. You gotta like a more. It's got a lot more spice, is what I'll say.
so. It's it's a really good stick. Now, Coop and I've even gotten to the conversations about it. It's almost because of the price. You put that side by side with a Bahique, and I'll tell you that it's nothing like a Cohiba Bahique.
No,
They're nothing alike, but it's one of those. Which one's going to do better? Do I think the Atabey is a better cigar? Probably. But it's the Bahique probably will outsell it still just because of what it is.
you and I
So,
both. Yeah, I mean, look at a cigar in that price range.
oh yeah,
Davidoff, you're the snake or an Atabey. What do you take?
Davidoff here, the snake, or an Atabey.
hmm You can leave one on the table and you could take one.
Oh man, you're the snake.
That, yeah, I mean, I would agree to you're the snake, but we thought about it, didn't we?
Yeah, it's tough.
We did think. Now you want to say you're the horse or an Atabey? And I love you're the horse.
Atabey.
Atabey, yeah, and that's a $31 cigar. So, I mean, we're talking. And I think you're the horse is one of the best 60 ring gauges ever made. Um,
That's a really good one.
yeah, so I mean, this is a cigar that I think it competes very good. It just doesn't have the name.
Yeah,
Um,
the name is just not. It's not there yet, but it's a great stick. But there's a lot of companies whose the name's not out there, but man, they got some really good stuff. You guys had them on the show and you smoked it. The Forta Selva Madura.
oh my goodness.
I mean, that's nothing Cuban about it. Nothing. I mean, fantastic stick. And I'll tell you one thing: if you go into your retailer and ask, hey, do you know anything about Forta Selva? Do you have it? Get them in touch with Gabriel Alvarez at Maya Selva. Great cigar.
Oh my goodness. And let me tell you, Paul, my co-host, he is very picky about cigars. I tend to be more because he has his favorites. when he starts waxing poetic on the show, you know you've struck it. He loved that cigar.
Yeah, it's
And those Connecticut's are very unique. And I know we're digressing a bit, but isn't it unique how there's like every size has a completely different blend and not a tweaked blend? We're talking tobaccos from different regions, all with the same wrapper.
oh yeah, it's
The
everything
common of that
really.
Connecticut is the wrapper, but and she worked. That was an intent. She wanted to create a different smoking experience for every size.
Well, it's you smoke your way through a Cuban portfolio. I mean, Olla de Monterey is a classic example. You can get some Cuban Ollas which are just very soft, very flavorful, but very smooth and creamy, and that's just what it is. But you can pick up another one like the Palmas or a short Robusto, and it's completely different. They are nowhere near that double Corona, very soft, creamy, smooth. They are stronger.
But the tobacco's the same, but tweaked.
I'm thinking that it's different blends for the size.
Okay, that's So because that could be because a lot of times a tweaked blend can make it taste different, but yeah, I mean today in today's boutique market especially you just don't see that.
Yeah, you really.
Or in the mass market, yeah, you just don't see it.
There are some, and I'm going to say because I know it. Jose's told me every Senoral it is blended for the size. It's not tweaked by proportions. He blended the Robusto, he blended the Corona, and he blended all of them. Now they're all fairly similar, but it's not proportion-wise.
No, I know because
size.
When you smoke the Gordo, it's very evident, and I thought the Gordo smoked very well. I was telling you that before the show, so there's no doubt Jose did that. He blended that for 60. You could tell.
So he's just. And that's the right way to do it. There's some of these companies that just don't do it. And to me, that's what the Cubans do. That's what they do. They blend for the size. They blend now, and okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we need to do. This new La Olla de San Juan, that is blended for that 6x54. They didn't just take a blend and then proportion it. They blended it for that. And it's worked out really well because of that. I can't believe we're already gone over an hour.
Yeah, it went fast.
Simon says Falto does the same thing with every cigar being a different blend. Yeah, so
I think the geeks up in Rhode Island really, because they have a lot more access to Falto. Paul's especially big, I should say, on Falto. And I agree with him. I've smoked a few of them. I'm not saying they're in my wheelhouse, but he's right on that. Absolutely.
So we'll wrap it up by what are some cigars which, and we're not going by packaging, what are some cigars which are non-Cuban, that are Cuban-esque, that you enjoy?
Wow.
That's a tough question. And I didn't give you any prep on this, and I didn't even prepare myself on this. I didn't think about it. I'm like, this is the question we're going to ask.
Regis comes to mind right away.
Yeah.
Regis Black Label right away. Where I've just absolutely...
Regis Black Robusto is a really good one.
Atabey. I'll play Atabey. Again, I'm taking the easy way out, but what I have not mentioned... Very good question. I mean... I want to say Adrian Bin #1, but it's not. It's too strong to be Cuban-esque.
Cinnarol #2 is that I'm smoking right now. I want you to smoke it. Tell me if I'm crazy or not. But that to me is showing some of that Cuban quality. But
I agree.
The Goldies, I mean, I have boxes aging just because I don't want to smoke them. But those, I think they will. But there's not many out there. I mean, Elogio, Siri LSVs, if you find those are very Cuban-esque in that sense. So,
I'll give you a little bit of a surprise of one. We haven't talked about this. Well, I'll say two. I'll say because there's two that I now thought of a second. Casada España for one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Definitely, especially if you like Cubans, you'll like that. The other one, and this one may be more of a surprise, but I know it's got a little more in strength. But I'll say and I'm not sure you're a fan of this cigar either. Capish will disagree with me on this one. Is the Pinolero by AJ Fernandez.
Oh, I completely disagree with you. That's a
Well,
good stick, though. That's a good stick. I like it.
I get what he was trying to do. It's stronger, yeah, but those two, I could see some Cuban-esque qualities, but maybe it's not totally Cuban-esque. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're saying. What he was trying to do.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I smoked, and this is it's. He got back in 2008. He made some. He made this. There was a line which I don't even know if it's still made for. Sol Cubano Cuban Classic for Cigars International and Cigar.com had it.
I haven't smoked that.
I don't even know if it's still around or not. This was back in '08, which is years ago. But he came up and he had some Toros with him, and they were more expensive. You could buy them, and we got handed one, and we're like, "What's so?" They're like, "Here, have this." We're like, "Okay, cool, Toro, thanks." He says, "No, this is something different." We're like, "What makes this so different?" He's like, "Listen, these have the Sol Cubano bands, but these are cigars where it's an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper with Cuban and Nicaraguan tobacco in the blend. Great cigar. I don't have any more left. Great cigar. You could pick up the Cuban tobacco in it, but it really kind of showed what could happen if Cuba opened up and we started getting good tobacco with that and working from there. And it was very fun.
I haven't had that one.
I don't even know if they still make them.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't had it.
So, and it's one of those things. As far as store when they first came out, it's really good, but then it kind of goes down over the end. It's kind of like the CI Legend series, the yellow that Pepin did back when he was first making them. Were really good, and then it just kind of became one of his mass production things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how about Grey Cliff? There you go, old Grey Cliff.
Which Grey Cliff would you say? I mean, I'm gonna say Black Label, no. Green Label, definitely no. Maybe Blue Label.
Yeah, I was
Maybe
gonna
Blue
say
Label.
blue. What was
Yeah.
yeah? Not the white, not the Cristal. It's probably I was thinking more blue or red. The purple's really damn tasty, but that's not Cuban-esque. But
Boy, you want to talk about a company that went off the cliff. Speaking of lack of a better term, Grey Cliff.
it's just they're still around, aren't they? Were they at the show?
Yeah, I mean their booth is an interesting booth. It's like all white with like these beads hanging down, and it's like dead. It's been dead. They've had their distribution problems, and now I think I don't want to give any more, but they've had some production problems as well. I mean, they've got issues right now, and then so I'm just shocked that I don't know how they're in business right now.
They got tons of money with a hotel, but
yeah, you're right.
So,
I'm sorry to Grey Cliff on that, but it's a fact.
The way it goes, but yeah, man. So that's the hour. Coop, thanks for filling in, man. You and I can just chitty chatty afterwards, but that way we can stop broadcasting. And,
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I appreciate the opportunity.
No, it was an interesting conversation because I'll tell you one thing. I think this could be very controversial. I'd love to see people's opinions on it.
I'd love to see Catfish's rebuttal. Catfish is a guy I highly respect his palate and his knowledge in this area too. So I'm kind of curious, even if he disagrees with me on a lot of stuff. I think it's.
Oh, he'll probably bash the shit out of us for this whole show, which makes it even 15 times better.
Exactly. Yeah, he's gonna hate me now.
With them. But we will be back. Catfish will be back. The next time we're doing a blind tasting with the Blind Man Puffs guys.
Can I give it those guys? Let me tell you, if you're read online media, you've got to see the work that Blind Man's Puff is doing right now.
It's pretty
And
intense. It's intense, man. That's legit.
you're about to go through the process, and I'll tell you something. They have a whole system for blind reviews. They got it down to a science. These guys.
They spent time on this, and they're sending us. We're doing it with Cubans with them,
Uh,
and
yeah,
they've told us we can't use any of our resources to kind of even get an idea of what it is. But as Catfish and I have determined in private messages, we're about to get something incredibly rare or really old, and we're just about to get schooled. Um, so we're looking forward to it.
yeah. I mean, like I said, you look at guys who are really put the time and effort into cigar media, and Aaron and Emmett and those guys. Um, and they do regular reviews as well.
Yeah,
I just, like I said, I think my first review was supposed to come out this week. It hasn't come out yet. That I went through. I'm dying to find out what they sent me because I have no clue. So
it's cool that they don't tell you until the review goes up, because I'd be one of those guys who's really wondering about it.
yeah, I've smoked. They sent me 3 sticks. I smoked through the first 2. So
Good deal.
I'm dying to find out. Yep.
All right, well, that was What Embargo, episode Diecisiete on Cuban-esque. What is it? Are we full of shit? Who knows? So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a good